The murder of Ahmaud Arbery was a lot of things, but the one thing that it wasn't was surprising. This has been going on for a long time, far too long. And although I agree with the verdict, there are still things that need to be said about it. Because what happened to Ahmaud Arbery wasn't just some racist good old boys who lynched him. This was a murder by the state. And I'm talking about more than just the crooked racist DA and the bunch of anti-black racist cops that are in that area. You know full well they've been getting away with this for the longest time. This wasn't the first time something of this nature had happened. It's just a matter of that after the uprisings of 2020, they understood, okay, the game is up, at least for now. There are way too many people who are looking to celebrate. What they're looking to do is they're looking to throw in the towel and say, okay, well, we think the racists have gotten the message. No, they haven't. This is what they always do. If when the heat gets too hot, they decide that they're going to try to pretend, put up some pretense, oh, we're doing something. See, the situation's not so bad. See. And then as soon as everybody seems to have turned their backs, here we go back to the old ways. People are calling themselves congratulating the DA and congratulating the judge. Do not congratulate a civil servant for doing their job. That's what you pay them for. Do not forget this is the same judge who sat in court and feigned helplessness when he admitted, yeah, I know that these guys are racially excluding all of the black jurors, but there's nothing I can do about it. Let's be clear here. The court didn't want black people to condemn these good old boys because they knew there was a federal trial coming. Same thing as what happened with Michael Slager. It's a matter of they already knew, well, if they don't get this guy at the state level, they're going to get him at the federal level. He can't dodge both. The racist clerks of court who deliberately make sure to exclude as many black people from the jury pool as possible, or a crooked judge, they might be able to rig things at the county level, but they're not going to be able to do it at the federal level, and they know it. So since there was no chance of keeping Cletus and Enos out of the clink, they decided that instead, well, let's make sure at least black people are not the ones who condemn these clowns. It's obvious that they're guilty as hell. There's no way to get around that. So at the very least, we're going to make sure that it's not black people who pass judgment on them. We should know far better than to fall for cheap judicial theater like this meant to do image rehab for the dominant society. Because here's the thing. These guys have been doing stuff like this. That DA, that Jackie woman, she had been doing this for the longest time. And it wasn't just Ahmaud Arbery who was her first victim. And these people who lived there, they didn't need to wait until a racist lynching took place for them to do so. Well, there's a few of them now who are speaking up, a couple of them now. Yeah, when black people go ahead and we got to be the ones who do the heavy lifting, then here comes everybody else pulling up the rear. Oh, we knew it too. It's the same thing with all this police brutality. You didn't need to wait until the murder of George Floyd and all these black folks getting gunned down in rapid succession to do something. They could have done something on their own. They didn't need to wait for black people. Hell, they're the ones who have the most money, the most authority. They're the ones who also are supposed to have the most numbers at the ballot box. And yet when it comes to the thugs in blue, they get full and complete support from these people. And then they want to turn around later after black folks have kicked open the doors and had to actually bring the issue to national attention. And then here they are saying, oh my God, I can't believe this has been going on. It's been going on. It's just crazy. Yeah, it's crazy that these people sat on their hands and didn't do nothing about it. It's amazing how many people find their spines after black folks are the ones who have to actually get in there and get our hands dirty. And we got to be the ones to take the bullets and the blows. And then everybody else just pulls up the rear. The people with the least power, the least money, the least ability to defend ourselves from these violent attacks, and yet we're the ones who have to take responsibility for making the most changes. So we need to make sure that we don't give in to any white media-generated narratives here, trying to absolve the people who are guilty of the crimes that they committed. Ahmaud Arbery was as much a victim of the crooked and racist politicians and administrators in that area and an uncaring citizenry by and large there as he was of the three thugs, the three inbreds who took his life. All of those hayseeds, all of those good old boys and good old gals down there, and none of them thought to say a word until after Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. Then all of a sudden they discovered their spines. Give me a break. I applaud the verdict, but let's not lose sight of what's really going on here, what really happened here. You had Sleaze Merritt, who was on the scene, and that slime trail that he left. People are saying, well, for once Sleaze Merritt didn't have his clients saying forgive. That's because it wasn't the cops who killed. It wasn't an active duty police officer who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. That's the reason why Sleaze Merritt was acting differently this time. He wasn't given the forgive line because it wasn't an active duty cop who took Ahmaud Arbery's life. It is a pure tragedy what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. Being run down, stalked, and murdered in the street. And the tragedy compounded by what happened afterwards. He didn't really have true advocates. He had a mother who seemed to be more interested in letting everyone know to feel her pain, and a father who was clearly just looking for nothing but attention. He's dead, and the only thing that they can think about are themselves. This is the reason, family, why we have our rule in place. We can and do speak on black people who have been murdered by some white supremacist thug with or without a badge. But when it comes to doing a full court press and we're going to get out there and we're going to put on the cape for people, that we do not do. We wait and see what the family says, what the family does. They should be the ones out there pushing the most, pushing hardest, banging the drum the most. You don't sit there and hide behind Sleaze Merritt or Mushmouth Crump or whomever it is that you got in front of the cameras. That's not the business. That ain't the way that it goes. It is neither dignified nor justified for people to decide that they're going to let their lawyers tell everybody why the community, this is terrible, we already know all that. The only thing that we need to be hearing is punishment. Now, if you're not talking about prison sentences and making it very clear that the courts are going to be hearing about it every freaking day, then you need to keep your mouth shut. All of this attention whoring and jumping in front of the camera and people who are trying to find a way to get 5 minutes of fame off of the blood of an innocent person murdered by some white supremacist, that's got to stop. Why is it that you got all of these prosecutors and judges who are only too glad to ignore black people whenever one of ours has been murdered? Is because in too many cases, the families of the deceased have shown that they'll settle for something other than punishment. You ain't got to really punish this white supremacist because the family will settle for something else. Let them get in front of the camera, get a little bit of attention, feel important for 5 minutes. Why? That'll be better than anything else. Why? You don't need to convict anybody. They'll settle for that. Just give them some attention. That's all they really want. And that's something we have to be honest about when we're talking about these family members. There is a lot of Munchausen by proxy syndrome in the black community. And for those of you who don't remember what that is, Munchausen by proxy is when you got a parent who tries to get attention for themselves by poisoning their child or otherwise making people think that the child is sick, has some sort of chronic condition. They'll often do it until the child is dead so they can get all of their neighbors and friends to say, oh, how sad, how terrible that you, the long-suffering parent who have to go through this, how hard it must be for you to see your child like this. And they're like, yes, give me more attention because I'm useless, I'm worthless, I don't mean anything, so nobody would ever pay attention to me, so pay attention to my child. That's right. It's a terrible thing to believe, but the truth of the matter is actions speak far louder than words. The only thing that we should be hearing is outrage and demands for punishment. On the other hand, when people get in front of the camera and it's all about, oh, my child, they were this, they were that, we know what they're really doing. What they're really saying is, hey, people, look at me. Look at how much I just miss my child so much. Oh, how terrible, dear, how terrible that, oh, we saw the video, how terrible that happened to you. Well, you have our sympathies, and they're only too glad to tell people about it. Call a press conference, get in front of the cameras, make sure you bring your sleazy lawyer with you. White supremacy knows it's Negroes. They'll do or say anything if they think it's what white daddy wants to hear. And every black person knows that the one thing the white supremacists love to hear most from us is that after they attack or brutalize us, it's okay, massa. I forgives yous. I knows you didn't means it's. People who are too happy to jump in front of the camera because they know there's all of these white supremacists watching. So that they can hopefully in their minds, they're going to be winning brownie points. And we want as many people to see us as possible. And the media is going to tell us how great it is that we are holding a grudge. So let's not be expecting these family members to be changing anytime real soon. They're not on the same mission that we are. They're not out here for the same reason we are. We need to be looking forward to preventing the next Ahmaud Arbery and what we can do whenever this does occur because these white supremacists are waging a race war. Whenever they take an L, they don't quit the fight. Instead, they regroup or even fall back if they have to. But what they're not going to be doing is looking for a way to surrender. That they won't be doing. So what solutions and measures can we take to make certain that justice is done and to guarantee that punishing these white supremacists isn't in the hands of the racist in-laws and family members and other people who we know are sympathetic to anti-black racism? What can we do to make sure that the next time Cletus and Enos and the boys decide that they're going to be stalking some black person, making sure that we are safe from these white supremacist attacks? And that brings us to the sponsor of today's moment of truth, power tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready. And always carry your steel. Power tools. Because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. White supremacy is pure evil, the worst evil the world has ever known. And evil doesn't go away all on its lonesome. It has to be made to do so. It has to be driven out. It must be forced from every arena. It must be found wherever it's cowering at and forced to flee, and we have to be the ones driving them out. We must seize the levers of power for ourselves. We can and should have disproportionate influence, and we can if we make that our focus. Now, when it comes time for this kind of conversation, a lot of black folks love to put on the defeatist talk, and the reason why is they think that absolves them of having to do anything. They pretend as if, all these other black folks, you knows they wouldn't goes for nothing like that. They would. What they're really saying is they don't want to do anything, so they're trying to blame some anonymous, unseen they as a means to cover up for their own cowardice, their own apathy, their own unwillingness to mix it up with the white supremacists and actually put in the work that power demands. That's why I have no patience for any of the fools who come along trying to play the game of, it's really these other black folks. No, the problem is you. The problem is that you want to make excuses for not fighting white supremacy. That is, until some good old boys get in their pickup truck with some shotguns and decide they're going to chase you down. Then all of a sudden, somebody needs to do something. What's the solution for a racist clerk of court who constantly makes sure that they're not calling any black folks for jury duty? To have a black empowerment clerk of court. What is the solution for a racist judge, or at least a judge highly sympathetic to the white supremacists who lets them get away with stacking the jury and lets them do whatever the hell they want? The solution is a black empowerment judge. What's the solution for a racist judge like that Judge Schroeder in Kenosha? Judge Olu Stevens in Louisville. That's the solution. The solution is getting those white supremacists out of those DA's offices and out of those sheriff's offices and off of those judicial benches and getting our people in them. And depending on the demographics of your city council or your county, it makes all the sense in the world to use the ballot box. Voting works if black empowerment is on the ballot. And you can have the most impact at the local level. Federal elections, not so much. Voting can work, but only if you've already got somebody who's on there, or if you don't see black empowerment on the ballot, you be the one to put it on the ballot. Because we're not going to protect ourselves from the next white supremacist ambush or make sure that we punish the next white supremacist ambush unless we're the ones in charge. We're not going to win this fight by being reactive. After last year's insurrection, you now have a number of the very terrorists who took part in the coup attempt now running for public office. And they're using the fact that they tried to overthrow the government as their calling card. They're playing that as one of their qualifications. I should be in the government because I tried to overthrow the government. Now vote for me. Putting aside how ridiculous it is that somebody expects to be able to have people respect them being in public office when they didn't respect the other people who are, putting that aside, it just goes to show, even the very people who have no business running for office, these guys are absolutely shameless about it. That's because they are serious about making sure that they remain in charge. They're serious about making sure that they try to occupy as many of the levers of administrative power as they possibly can. The time to be dealing with the next McMichaels family and their little inbred accomplice, it's not after they murder the next Ahmaud Arbery. By then it's too late. The time to deal with these scumbags is before they kill. No more of these instances where we're sitting here wondering whether or not the law is actually going to be enforced. No more of this wondering whether or not they're going to let yet another all-white jury be impaneled. Whether or not another judge is going to be giving a wink and a nod to everything the defense does. Because if there's anything that we should have learned from the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, it's that justice is too important to be left up to chance. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Lo Have Mercy, Secrete Balance, Lugthes, Maurice Soul, and Genesis Reset. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.